With the first pick in the 2007 NBA Draft, the Portland Trailblazers select Kevin Durant from the University of Texas.
In the 2007 NBA Draft, the Portland Trailblazers made a colossal mistake. Picking first, they chose Greg Oden, an All-American from Ohio State whose injuries have made him the bust of the decade. But what if they could go back and choose Kevin Durant, a future NBA MVP? How much would their seasons change? How much would the entire NBA landscape change? As you are about to see, the answer is a lot. The 2008 NBA season did not turn out a whole lot differently with Durant on the Blazers. The only notable changes occurred with the Blazers, who won 4 more games with Durant, and with the Sonics, who lost 5 more games without him. The Celtics still defeated the Lakers in the NBA championship, Kobe was still MVP, and Durant was still Rookie of the Year. However, this minor change in the standings did have a huge impact on the NBA draft. The Sonics, finishing at 15-67, lost to the Heat in a game they had previously won. That put the Sonics as the worst team in the NBA. After the draft lottery, the Bulls still picked first and took Derrick Rose. However, the Sonics now received the second pick, taking Michael Beasley in hopes that he could be the next Kevin Durant.
This comparison was almost right, except Beasley couldn't score, pass, rebound, or defend. He was a better actor though, so that counts for something.
The next change came at the 4 spot, where the Heat, failing to trade their draft pick, take Brook Lopez due to their horrible depth at center. And that means,
with the 6th pick in the 2008 NBA Draft, the New York Knicks select Russell Westbrook from UCLA.
Yes, Russell Westbrook ends up with the New York Knicks, and Gallinari ends up going 8th to the Bucks. This small change in draft positioning lands the Knicks a future MVP candidate. Hard to see Knicks fans booing this pick. However, they need to boo something and settle on a local Boy Scout troop in a shocking turn of events. The 2009 season brought with it more changes than 2008, but still not many. The Lakers still end up as NBA champs, beating the Magic in the finals. LeBron was still MVP, and Rose was still Rookie of the Year. The Thunder, without Durant, lose 7 extra games and again finish worse than the NBA. I'm sure Durant doesn't mind though, as the Blazers win 2 more games and fall to the Spurs in the Western Conference semi-finals. In the process, Durant makes his first All-Star game as a Blazer, and his career is taking off, with Greg Oden's career as a lifeless statue not far to follow. Keep getting them checks, Greg. The Nets, meanwhile, lose a few more games due to the loss of Brook, and the Knicks lose even more with Westbrook running around chucking up bricks. His teammates were appalled, but still gave him plenty of high fives to avoid his wrath. Surprisingly, the Minnesota Timberwolves also dropped 5 games, losing once to the Knicks, Heat, and Nets, and twice to the Bucks. This would be significant. That brings us to the 2009 draft, and wow, changes are taking place. OKC finished worst in the league, but get the 4th pick, and the Timberwolves win the lottery, which means
the Minnesota Timberwolves select Blake Griffin from the University of Oklahoma.
The Grizzlies take the beat at number 2, which would be about 5 spots too high in the NBA D-League draft. The Kings, meanwhile, take Tyreek at 3rd. Harden still ends up 4th. The Wizards still trade their pick to the Wolves, who take Rubio, which means they don't end up with Johnny Flynn, who is taken by the Clippers. Wait, does that mean
the New York Knicks select Stephen Curry?
The Knicks take future NBA MVP Steph Curry with the 7th pick, giving them a backcourt of Westbrook and Curry. I'm going to use this sentence to pause for a bit because I'm sure multiple Knicks fans watching this have thrown their laptops in anger. Back, Knicks fans? Good. Now, the Warriors end up with Jennings at 8, DeMar still goes to the Raptors, and the Bucks want a point guard, so they take Drew Holiday. And sliding down in the draft, Minnesota takes Ty Lawson and actually keeps him. Good news for Minnesota, bad news for Denver. The 2010 season has the Trailblazers winning an extra 6 games, picking up the number 2 seed in the West. Again losing to the Spurs, but this time in the first round of the playoffs. The Thunder are noticeably worse, winning only 34 games without Westbrook and Durant. The Knicks show a little improvement with Curry and Westbrook, but not too much. Still, the Lakers win the championship over the Celtics, However, Curry, playing under the lights of Madison Square Garden, takes home Rookie of the Year instead of Tyreek. Which brings us to the 2010 draft. No need to really go into this one. Basically, nothing important changes, except that the Thunder keep Eric Bledsoe instead of trading him to the Clippers because they no longer have Westbrook. The landscape of the NBA has already changed, which means so have free agency and trade decisions. Raymond Felton does not sign with the Knicks because he wants to be a starter, so he signs with the Kings. The Heat, desperate to clear cap space, trade Brook Lopez to a team with money, the New Jersey Nets. See? Some things just work out. The Timberwolves, with their new front court of Blake and Love, sense an opportunity to win now. Instead of trading Al Jefferson for future picks, they trade him to the Suns for Jason Richardson and a first-round pick. The Blazers decide they need a new center to put them over the top and trade Rudy Fernandez, Joel Przybilla, and their 2011 and 2014 draft picks for Marcin Gortat and Quinnen Richardson. And the Knicks still wanted Carmelo Anthony. However, they no longer had the pieces to make the trade work, as they were unwilling to give up Curry or Westbrook. Instead, they decided to wait until free agency. A daring strategy, as they would have to give up nothing for him instead of decimating their team. Did I say daring? I meant obvious. This leads us to the 2011 NBA season. Again, the Blazers win more games, but again, they lose in the playoffs. This time to Dallas, who goes on to win the NBA championship over the Heat. Brook takes some time getting adjusted to his new role with the Nets, and they finish last in the NBA. The Thunder still don't have Westbrook and Durant, which is a problem, and have a much worse season. While the Timberwolves, playing now with Ty Lawson and Blake, do much better. Blake still ends up Rookie of the Year, while LeBron is the MVP. The 2011 NBA draft comes and goes, bringing us several drastic changes. With the first pick,
The Charlotte Bobcats select Kyrie Irving.
Yes, Kyrie is a Bobcat now, and all I can say is, I'm sorry, Kyrie. Derek Williams goes second to the Jazz, Cantor goes third to the Kings. The Clippers, seeing no reason to win without Blake, do not trade their pick in season and instead get Brandon Knight at 6th. The Pistons end up with Kemba instead of Knight, and the 76ers, looking to trade Andre Iguodala, take Kawhi Leonard at number 10 with the steal of the draft. I'm sorry, Spurs, but you're not using your voodoo magic this time. The Wolves take Markieff Morris at 12 and Tobias Harris at 19, and the Thunder no longer have pick 24, so the Spurs end up with Reggie Jackson at 29. Damn you, voodoo magic! The 2012 season was dominated by one question. Where would Chris Paul be traded to? The answer would no longer be the Clippers, as they did not have a superstar in Blake to attract him to stay. Instead, we look over to the cold city of Minnesota, where Blake Griffin now spent his winters. Yes, Chris Paul, Lance Thomas, and DeJuan Summers get traded to Minnesota in exchange for Nikola Pekovic, Ty Lawson, Tobias Harris, Brad Miller, and their 2012 first-round pick. But wait, after the trade is completed, the NBA vetoes the trade and sends Chris Paul to their city rival, the Minnesota Wild, an NHL franchise. Just kidding. This time. Minnesota was not done yet, though. The 76ers, having drafted Kawhi, were now even more interested in moving Iguodala. They decided to buy the hype on the Spanish Maravich and traded Iguodala, Leroy Allen, and Francisco Elson for Rubio, Markieff Morris, Darko Milicic, and Anthony Randolph. Suddenly, David Kahn had gone from the worst general manager in NBA history to one of the best the league has ever seen. Yes, this really is a fantasy. The Blazers needed point guards, so they trade Nicholas Batum to the Rockets for Goran Dragic in a deal that makes sense for both sides. And yes, Carmelo signs with the Knicks in a move that surprises no one. And so with Chris Paul, Iggy, Blake Griffin, and Kevin Love, little old Minnesota finishes second in the West. Right behind them are the Blazers, who finished third. The Knicks, behind Curry, Melo, and Westbrook, finished third in the East. The Thunder and Clippers, don't do so well without their stars. LeBron wins the MVP again, Kyrie is still Rookie of the Year, but wouldn't you know it, the Timberwolves make the NBA Finals in place of the Thunder. They still lose to the Heat, but the future is bright in Minnesota, unlike the weather. The 2012 NBA draft was a pretty important one. The Bobcats still finished worse, the Cavs slipped to the 2 spot, the Clippers were 3rd, and the Wizards were 4th, which means
The Washington Wizards select Anthony Davis.
Yes, Anthony Davis is a Washington Wizard, making this the 2nd greatest moment for Wizards ever, trailing only when Ron Weasley broke out of the friend zone with Hermione. The Bobcats still take Kid Gilchrist at 2, the Cavs end up with Beal at 3, Barnes goes 4 to the Clips, and the Kings get Damian Lillard at 6, making this the 2nd greatest moment for Kings ever, trailing only Jon Snow taking the Iron Throne. That hasn't happened yet? man can dream. As the summer came to a close, the question on everyone's mind was, where would Dwight Howard end? The Lakers seemed like a prime destination. However, Iguodala was now on the Timberwolves, so they could not work out a 3-team deal. Instead, Howard pushes for a different angle. Steph Curry has spent his 3 seasons in the NBA so far dealing with various injuries, calling into question his ability to be a reliable piece on a championship roster. And so he is expandable, and the Knicks, expand him, trading him and Tyson Chandler to the Magic for Dwight Howard. The San Antonio Spurs were also growing restless, as they no longer had a young wing in Kawhi to take some of the pressure off their big three. And so they targeted Rudy Gay, trading him for George Hill and Steven Jackson. This brings us to the 2013 season, where the Trailblazers finished 3rd in the Western Conference. The Timberwolves, dealing with injuries, finished 4th, a disappointment after their finals appearance a year before. The Knicks finished 2nd in the East behind their new big three of Westbrook, Howard, and Melo. However, the Heat still had a pretty good big three of their own. They finished in the top spot in the East, then cruised to an NBA title. Their opponent was not the Spurs, however, as the Trailblazers finally break through and win the Western Conference Championship. LeBron is still the NBA MVP, and Damian Lillard is still the Rookie of the Year. Let's save some time here. The 2013 NBA draft was pretty bad. Bad enough to save us from David Stern's voice. Anyway, Oladipo goes 1 to the Suns, Noel goes 6 to the Nuggets, Carter Williams goes to the Raptors at 10, and Giannis goes 13 to the Warriors. You can pause the video if you care about anyone else here. In the 2013 offseason, the Magic need help for Curry, who just had a breakout year, and signed Josh Smith, which is the equivalent of helping to put out a fire by throwing a gallon of gasoline on it. Kevin Martin signs with the Trailblazers to provide scoring, and we have the 2014 season. The Knicks pick up a few more wins, but struggle to gel with 2 score-first stars. The Cavaliers lose a bit more without Kyrie, the Wizards win a bit more with Anthony Davis. The Thunder begin to come into their own with Harden and Bledsoe leading the way, and the Suns do not acquire Bledsoe and drop towards the bottom of the West. And yes, NBA championship history is rewritten, highlighted by a monster 66-16 record and an MVP season by Kevin Durant. The Portland Trailblazers win the NBA championship for the first time since 1977. During the celebration, Greg Oden is spotted folding burritos at Chipotle. Keep getting them checks, Greg. The 2014 NBA draft comes and the 76ers finish 9th, which means
76ers select Andrew Wiggins from Toronto.
Yes, Andrew Wiggins ends up with the 76ers, giving them the superstar they needed without shamelessly tanking. The NBA, where irony happens. Parker still goes to the Bucks, the Celtics get Exum, and the Jazz get Smart. The Lakers get Aaron Gordon, and the Nuggets get the chance to take Greg Oden's reincarnated brother in Joel Embiid. The 2014 NBA offseason originally had LeBron return home to the Cleveland Cavaliers in order to win a championship for his hometown city. Unfortunately for Cavs fans, they have to root for the Browns. And what's even more unfortunate is that LeBron took one look at Cleveland and saw no Kyrie and no Wiggins, which meant no Kevin Love. And that meant no LeBron. He stays with Miami. Luol Deng does not go to the Heat, instead he goes to the Kings. The 2015 NBA season saw the Heat finish 3rd in the East, as despite injuries, they still have the best player in the NBA. The Cavaliers plummet to the bottom of the East. The Warriors are no longer the top seed in the West, instead finishing 6th, which is still better than Curry can manage on the Magic, where he misses the playoffs. The Grizzlies, meanwhile, take advantage of depletions to the Spurs and Thunder's rosters, picking up a few wins and moving into 1st in the West. The Blazers only get a half season from Durant, but still win 56 games, matched by the Timberwolves. Wiggins still wins Rookie of the Year, but while the original 2015 season was a Warriors highlight film, this becomes the year of the Timberwolves. Chris Paul was the 2015 NBA MVP and silenced his critics, leading Minnesota to the 2015 NBA championship, winning over the Atlanta Hawks. A finals matchup that led to a month-long suicide watch in the NBA front office.
And so there you have it. By passing on Kevin Durant in the 2008 NBA draft, the Trailblazers cost themselves the 2014 NBA championship. But they weren't the only ones that changed. The Minnesota Timberwolves also proved to be a big winner, ending up with an NBA title and actual relevance. Chris Paul became an NBA MVP, securing his place in the great point guards of all time. Blake Griffin, Kevin Love, and LaMarcus Aldridge also were now NBA champions, jumping them up the list of this generation's greatest power forwards. The Knicks were in good position to continue competing behind Westbrook, Melo, and Dwight, and the Wizards' future looks bright with Anthony Davis and John Wall. That being said, every positive must have a negative, and the greatest negative this scenario saw was Steph Curry. No longer an MVP, no longer even on a playoff team, Curry's career was beginning to remind a lot of people of the careers of Tracy McGrady and Vince Carter, all-stars who could not win in or in some cases even make the playoffs. The Spurs lost out on the 2014 NBA championship, kicking the legacies of Duncan and Pop down a notch. And the Cavaliers no longer had basketball relevance. Instead, they found themselves looking up from the bottom of the NBA. And so, what this scenario really should show you is just how much the NBA can change with one decision, and just how many teams and players' legacies can be impacted. Which is why we ask ourselves, what if? What's up, everyone? I hope you enjoyed my video. That was pretty crazy. I mean, Kevin Durant gets drafted to the Blazers, the whole NBA changes. Now, I want to have a discussion on this, so comment down below what you thought of the video, anything you thought might have been realistic, unrealistic, whatever. And if you have any other what if episodes you want me to do, just let me know. And so yeah, subscribe to the channel. I will be posting more what if videos. I got a bunch of content on here. I'm excited to show it to you guys.